Guilty on all counts, the man now convicted of killing Delmar Corporal Keith Heacook admitting to the crime. Heacook's friends and family gathering in force telling Coast TV they believe justice was served. As Wilkerson faces life in prison, multiple calls today for the death penalty to return to Delaware. And Heacook case history, where the tragedy began almost 2.5 years ago.
From the beaches to the bays, coverage you can count on. Coast TV News at 6 starts right now.
Keith Heacook's widow, Susan, surrounded by supporters as she walks out of court. This after the man convicted of murdering her husband was found guilty on all counts. Good evening, I'm Charlie Sakaitis. Welcome to our News at 6.
I'm Madeline Overturf here outside the Sussex County Courthouse, where the trial in the man now convicted of killing Corporal Heacook began and ended in less than 2 hours. We learned a lot here today in this courtroom. We learned that Heacook was killed with a 20-pound dumbbell beaten to death. We learned that Wilkerson confessed to that crime just hours later. And we learned about this document. It's called a trial stipulation of facts. It's a key set of evidence, witness testimony, body cam footage. All of that was played in court today, and it's one of the reasons why Wilkerson was convicted so quickly. Randon Wilkerson, the man now convicted of murdering Delmar Corporal Keith Heacook, sat silently in court. In less than 90 minutes, Judge Craig Karsnitz issuing his verdict, guilty on all accounts. The courthouse was packed with Corporal Heacook's friends, colleagues, and family.
We're just glad justice was done.
The courtroom somber as Judge Karsnitz read this trial stipulation of facts, facts agreed upon by both the prosecution and defense. For the first time, revealing Heacook was beaten to death with a 20-pound dumbbell. And after being arrested, Wilkerson also told a Delaware State Police trooper, quote, "I killed him. I smashed him over the head with a weight." Footage from the crime scene showed where Heacook was attacked and across the street where Wilkerson confessed to beating his elderly neighbors with angel figurines. There were audible sobs in the courtroom as body cam footage from responding officers was played. As Wilkerson was sent back to prison, Heacook's family feeling some peace and justice for their beloved Keith.
Keith loved everybody. He always ran into danger, not away from it. And that laugh is one thing we'll all never forget.
Wilkerson sentencing is scheduled for December 8th. Now, many people that we spoke with today say they will be here that day, hoping for the maximum sentence, which would be life in prison. We also learned here today that Wilkerson tested positive for fentanyl, methamphetamine, marijuana, cocaine. He also confessed to drinking hundreds of mini bottles of vodka. That's where we join Coast TV's Mallory Metzner in the newsroom. Mallory, Wilkerson was celebrating his birthday hours before killing Corporal Heacook.
Maddie, that was almost 2.5 years ago now. Corporal Keith Heacook responded to a 911 call alone on April 25th, 2021. It was a response he made hundreds of times in his 22 years on the Delmar police force, except that day would be his last. However, it sparked change for policing in Delmar.
Newly released photos from the trial show where it all started, with a fight-in-progress call in the Yorkshire Estates community of Delmar, to which Corporal Keith Heacook responded. That was not the only 911 call to come through. After Randon Wilkerson's roommates called the police on him, he went across the street to the home of Steve and Judy Franklin to ask for help. They let him inside, and Wilkerson beat the elderly couple with angel figurines as seen in these photos from the crime scene. These crime scene photos show the inside of Wilkerson's home, where he went back across the street and attacked Corporal Heacook, who was responding to the initial 911 call from Wilkerson's roommate. Heacook was taken off life support 3 days later on April 28, 2021, and died from his injuries. His organs were harvested to help others live. On May 10, 2021, thousands gathered to say goodbye to Corporal Heacook at Emmanuel Wesleyan Church in Salisbury.
Corporal Keith Heacook paid the ultimate sacrifice.
It's a sacrifice the community of Delmar will never forget. His voice recorded forever on his wife Susan's voicemail box.
Hi, honey. I figured I'd try to call you again.
And his heartbeat immortalized in a teddy bear. Even as his killer is finally brought to justice, the community will always mourn and remember its fallen hero, a loving father, husband, brother, son, and friend.
Delmar State Street Park was rededicated in Heacook's name this past year, and his name was added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in 2022. And the annual Heacook Fest that has raised money for nonprofits that give back to first responders has expanded to raise money for others in need. And organizers say that Heacook Fest will be expanded again to a 2-day event in 2024. Maddie, back to you.
Thank you, Mallory. Now, as you can imagine, the reaction today here was strong and emotional. And I'm joined right now by Coast TV News reporter Elisa Weber. And Elisa, you spoke with some of the people who knew Corporal Heacook best.
Maddie, everyone from family, friends to fellow police officers are devastated by the loss of Corporal Heacook. Now, they were relieved today, though, by the verdict in the courtroom.
The verdict is in, and that more than likely this young man will spend the rest of his life behind bars. But I will say that he got a better shake than my officer did. So we move forward.
It's impossible not to cry when you see a human being that was at your house 7 or 8 days earlier than this, having oysters and hot dogs on your grill, when you see him in that kind of condition.
Oh, without a doubt. There's nothing we can do to bring Keith back and to bring back all the great work that he did as a Delmar police officer. But I wish we'd bring back the death penalty. That's what we need. This is certainly a case that screamed for the death penalty, no question about it.
Verdict will still stand.
Lisa, thank you so much for that. Now, about that appeal, something interesting about it, there was a number of questions brought up about Wilkerson's drug use, and we learned today in court there actually was a little bit of a back and forth between prosecutors and defense attorneys. Now, that drug use ended up being excluded from court, specifically this issue about the drug use. As I mentioned, some of it was already admitted to and found in toxicology reports. We're going to break down the complicated issue of that drug use appeal, which prosecutors say they are expecting. All that you can find right now on coasttvnews.com and on our app. Now, also, a lot of people today were speaking about the death penalty. Many people wishing that was an option here today for Wilkerson. There's a very, very complicated history with the death penalty here in Delaware. Back to you.
Thank you, Maddie. And with that in mind, let's look at a brief history of the death penalty here in the first state. Capital punishment. It was abolished by Delaware in 1958, only to return in 1961. Then in 1986, legislation was passed that made lethal injection the mode of execution. In 1991, Delaware changed its law for the jury to recommend the penalty and then the judge to decide the sentencing. Then in August 2nd, 2016, the Delaware Supreme Court ruled that Delaware's death penalty was actually unconstitutional. Outside of court today, many of Corporal Heacook's family and friends stated that it was justice served, but they believed that Wilkerson did deserve to die.
Bring back capital punishment.
Now, this brings us to our Coast TV poll. We want to know if you think Delaware should bring back the death penalty. Let's take a look at the updated results from the latest news hour. Here's what they say so far this evening. It has been leaning towards yes, and you can see it there, 69% saying yes, 31% saying no, but this is always a divisive issue. So if you want to weigh in, you can do so. Go to WRDE.com or use our Coast TV mobile app, and we will show you updated results on Coast TV News at 11.